house rules. Join us on AVE Live, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us on Zoom. Watch on Facebook or YouTube from the AV Educate page, or register as an attendee for the webinar. Live Q&A. Our guest will lead us through a guided demo and conversation about tonight's topic. We will take your questions and comments throughout the show. Don't wait until the end. Get your questions and comments in early to shape the conversation. We don't know it all. We're human and don't claim to know everything. We may demonstrate or discuss one way to do something, but that doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. If you found another way that is easier or yields better results, please share with the community so we can all learn together. Follow AV Educate. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and have a library of content on YouTube. Join us on Zoom for AV Tech Talks and to become a member of our community on Discord, where the conversations, the learning, and the sharing continues. We are where you are. Place your phone over the QR code to come learn more about AV Educate.
Hey everybody, welcome to AV Tech Talks. It's Monday night and it's 7 p.m. Eastern Time, so here we are. It's Labor Day here in the U.S., so rather than burden somebody with coming and having to do a presentation, we decided we were just going to kind of do a nice hangout here on Zoom. We are streaming, so you should be seeing us if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. And I threw in the chat on both platforms a link so you can come join us on Zoom, because then we can promote you to a panelist and we'll be able to see you and hang out. And we might not keep the stream up all night. We'll see how the conversation's going. But we'd really love to have you guys here so that we can all kind of just talk and hang out. And, we want to hear about the projects you're working on, stuff you got coming up, any cool stuff you've done this summer, other things besides AV that you found to occupy your time, because we all struggle with those, what's that thing called? Work-life balance. I think that's what I've heard it called before. I'm terrible with it, but working on it. And we'd love to just have you come, chat, hang out. So feel free, join on the link I put in the chats. I'll throw it in there a couple more times as the night goes on. But I'd love to hear from anybody on the panel. See what are people been doing this summer? We got some people who haven't been here in a while. Iris, you haven't been here in a while. Tim, you're not usually on the panel, but you're an avid watcher and usually a joiner in our after show. I know, John, you look like you're in a different location today, and I know the other day I got to see your downstairs studio you were working on. Brent hasn't been here in a while, so we'd love to hear what are some of the people working on, what's been going on, what have you been doing this summer. Anybody interested in talking first? Otherwise, I'll just pick somebody. All right, Iris, what have you been doing?
That sounds exactly like my kids. Somebody volunteer, or I'm going to volunteer you. Actually, I started teaching television production in a high school. So it's been teaching classes, taking classes, and just trying to get this studio going for these kids. Other than that, I am part of a medieval recreation group called the Society for Creative Anachronism, and we put on our first live event on Saturday in a very long time. So it's been busy.
Cool. What kind of live event was it?
It was what's called crown list. We pick our king and queen by right of arms, and it's every 6 months. And well, the last crown was on for a year and a half because COVID. So that was it. And our group was the group that was actually running the event. So with that, we are keeping the live streaming that we started during COVID and actually going to be getting better equipment and everything else. So I was hanging out with our streamer, hopefully going back and forth and giving us some ideas and just how to make it a better stream, because it's very minimal at the moment.
How often do you contest that seat by right of arms?
6 months. It's supposed to be every 6 months. COVID's thrown things off, so the next one is actually in 3 months. So
I think you ought to be able to just challenge randomly.
That's different tournaments.
It sounds like it's like, is it like to the death? Like how? What's the?
Not literally.
Sounds treacherous.
Yeah. They wear armor. They use rattan swords. They actually fight each other. It's not choreographed. So it's fun. The SCA has been around since the 1960s, and we're historical educational society. So COVID's killed us, but we persevere online.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. At least you got to do an event, so that's nice. And congratulations on the position, and good luck. Hopefully, the kids don't eat you alive. And
not so far.
That's good. That's good.
I had one really tall kid go something about what happens when you get intimidated, and I just looked up at him and went, "I don't."
There you go.
And he just backed off and walked away.
Cool. Well, glad you didn't get intimidated, and that sounds like you're doing some interesting stuff, and it's a good pivot. I guess it didn't seem like there was the enough workload where you were, right? So that was kind of part of the reason.
If I was still hanging around, I'd still be on furlough.
Gotcha. Well, glad that you moved to a different path, and that you're working, and it makes us sad that we don't get to see you every week, because we understand you're pretty busy, but we definitely glad to hear that good things are happening. So.
Oh, I'll definitely be back when I'm taking fewer classes to take my classes to teach my classes.
Right. Cool. Well, we'll be happy to have you whenever you can join. Who else is anybody else been doing anything interesting this summer, whether it be work or non-work, or I think Brent, were you saying in our pre-show that you were just actually off for a week?
I've had the week off, which has been nice. I've only answered about 30 work emails during my week off. But yeah, we just built our third virtual studio. And with 10 other control rooms, it's a little hectic. And they basically said, Brent, you're in charge of all of these. So it's going to be an interesting. Well, and I think there's going to be a problem, and I think you guys actually had a show about this, is that there's going to be a huge labor shortage coming up that I am scared of, and yeah, it's very scary. We just need people, and I don't think the bosses understand that they need people.
Yeah, that's we did do an episode talking about that recently, and it seems like every conversation I have with pretty much anyone in the industry at some point turns to that exact topic of labor shortage.
Because everybody who got laid off went and found something better to do. And now we need like hundreds and hundreds of people, and it's not going to happen. So it'll be an interesting few months going ahead for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's interesting though. I mean, because you're in Canada, so that's, you know,
Yes.
um, for those who don't know, that's a different country than the U.S. It's north of us, and it's just interesting to see that you guys are going through some of the same things that we're seeing here in the U.S. And I think that's going to be a kind of the same scenario around the world, but I'm more familiar, obviously, with the U.S. and to some extent the Canadian market. But yeah, it just seems like there's a lot of people who either left the industry to find other positions, and a lot of freelancers. I talked to a lot of freelancers who I know quite a few who've gone that route and found jobs either at Home Depot or driving for Amazon or FedEx or any of those. And it's the first time in a long time for at least the people I know where they've had a job that was like a steady with a schedule that they can like plan the rest of their life around, and then where they can get benefits, like healthcare benefits, especially here in the States, is a concern for a lot of people. And if you're a freelancer, it's you're usually paying a ton of money, or you hope that your significant other maybe has benefits, or some kind of scenario where it's not coming from your freelance work typically, or you're just paying a ton for private insurance or through one of the marketplaces. So very, it's hard to lure people back once they've got that stability, and they, especially too, some of the people I know, at least personally, were not necessarily the main operators on the jobs they were doing. They might have been the second, the 2 level or below even. Maybe they were just technicians that set and strike, or they were assistants, whatever it was. And
Well, even just case pushers. It's
well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that too.
It's a hard thing to find nowadays.
Right. Absolutely. And if they didn't pivot to like doing virtual events during the time, they just found, I don't want to say greener pastures, but other pastures, and it's that seems to be working out for them. So I think it'll take, and it's still, I think right now, I mean, Brent, I know you said you've been busy, but it's not, up until now, it might be kind of like, it seems like we're getting a flood of like a lot of events coming back, but up until now it's been like more of a trickle. So maybe it'll take the event industry like really hitting home and not having a threat of near shutdowns from another variant or something to bring some of those people back when they realize, oh, okay, well, events look stable again, and they miss the paychecks that come with being freelance sometimes versus being full-time in a different industry. So I don't know, hopefully.
Well, in Canada, it's been a little bit different because we didn't willy-nilly just open everything up and say, okay, let's go. So in my opinion, and my opinion could be varied, it doesn't matter. I don't think we're going to get big live events back in Canada until at least January. So like the fall, and like everybody's going like, oh, okay, everything's free and open and whatnot. It's like that just doesn't, it's not quite the same up here.
Right.
Yeah, even at my day job, which is working in this industry, we had loosened up over the summer on our COVID protocols, or late summer. We had massive nursing staff on site doing COVID testing, and that's all been taken away. Plexiglass guards on all the security desks are gone. But the expectation is when we come back after Labor Day, much of that will be back. We'll be back under much stricter COVID restrictions because of the Delta variant.
One of the things I was reading was some countries are not recommending people come to the US again because of Delta and the way Delta was handled. And so there are cancellations again, and we could just end up going right back through this another time. So is it really recovering? Yes and no.
Well, and I'm technically not allowed into the States because I had my first vaccination was AstraZeneca, and my second vaccination was Moderna. So I'm like person non grata in the States.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that. So, is it because of the mix? Because you had two different?
Well, no, it's the U.S. Said basically anything that the FDA didn't approve is not a recognized vaccine. So, besides, there's a lot of us mutts up in Canada who took more than one vaccine, but the weirder part about it is that you're not going to be able to let anybody who's had a vaccine from outside of the FDA sphere of influence into the country right now. So anybody who's had the Sinovacs, anybody who's had the Russian one, Sputnik something or other, or anybody who's had the other Indian one, you can't go into the States because it's not technically a vaccine recognized by the FDA.
Yeah, I knew they had eliminated the Russian one and the Chinese one and the Indian one, but you had two of the ones that are accepted here in the U.S.
I didn't think Astra was accepted in the U.S.
Astra's not one of ours. I don't know if it's accepted or not, but we have Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J.
Well, and J&J was probably the worst of the three, but
Yeah, I don't know about the AstraZeneca.
that's going to be a big thing going forward is, can I even go to the States? And I do a lot of my business in the States. It's like, can I go there because they don't recognize that I've been vaccinated?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about the things now that have to be on our radar that have nothing to do with live events, but because it obviously affects how you can congregate people and all that. It's now a new thing we have to navigate to in order to get work. I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten in the last week and a half for upcoming events where actually, so I'll go back 6 weeks getting booked on events. Hey, booked on this event. They're going to require masks and social distancing. Cool. Hey, guess what? They want to require a test before you get there. So we have to have it, they're going to send you a kit and you're going to get a test. Okay, no problem. Hey, guess what? Now they're requiring proof of vaccination. Are you comfortable sharing that information and can you provide proof? So it's been getting for the same show, same client, and it's getting, more and more steps. And we've been saying it here on the show for quite a while that, and I think I made a joke a couple weeks ago that, your vaccination card is going to become the new C wrench, like you have to have it in your pocket and it better be there at the top of show, so that's kind of where I see it going. And with the amount of jobs that I'm booked on coming up, that has been the direction, started at just, we're going to mask. Okay, we need a negative test. And then you need your card. I see Mac holding up something. Is that, let me see.
It's not a bad idea. Like,
that's my Excelsior pass.
Gotcha.
We've had this, like, when we were kids, to go into kindergarten, you had to show proof of vaccination for Ella, freaking polio, mumps, all that stuff. So it's not like it's a new thing. So I don't know what half the people's problem is. And sorry, Ed, if this has turned political.
We'll try to keep it not political. People are entitled to opinions and we don't want to say what's right or wrong here. I'm just making it aware that this is the trend coming down the pipeline. Whether you agree with it or not is a totally different
if you're going to be on site on a show, you need to have this card. You're going to need to be able to say that I'm not going to infect people.
It's client comfort level. If the client wants their crew vaccinated, then you get the crew vaccinated. It's like any other client request. If this is what the client needs, if you're comfortable having you on their show, that's what you provide, politics or not. They're hiring you. It's what they want.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't have to like it, but and for the people who are still in the industry and have been getting booked, that might mean the difference between keeping some of the jobs that you're on or not, because it's coming. If it hasn't already affected the jobs that you're working, it will be affecting some jobs coming up soon. That the vaccination cards are going to become a requirement pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you can't work on Broadway without a vaccination.
Right.
Both
Exactly.
the League of Theaters and I think maybe even Local One require it.
Yep. Yeah. So that's the reality we're in right now, at least. So again, not telling you what to do one way or the other, or not criticizing anybody's choices, but if you want to choose to continue to work in this industry, just being aware that this is the direction that it's going to go. And the people who have been working and are still working, and I think anybody who has stuff booked in the next few months, that's more and more. That's what we're. Sorry, I'm laughing at. Not everybody on the streaming sites can see, but John.
No, it's what the hell is John doing?
Camera just fell over, but if you want to continue working in this field, or you want to come back to this field from wherever you've been working, those are things you're going to have to now start to consider. Is that you may be asked, and more than likely you will be asked to be able to provide proof of vaccination.
The big thing with that is that a bunch of my clients have said, if you're going to go into my building, you need to be vaccinated. You need to be 2 doses plus 12 days or whatever it is, or plus 14 days. And the worst thing that happened lately is that my employer had a global broadcast, and my global head of HR said, "Oh, we will not be mandating vaccinations," which is fine. But I'm sitting there going, okay, can we do this in Canada? Because who the hell cares about the global guy? It's like, can we just do this in Canada? Because it would make me feel much, much better about going to work. Or even we can go to the next steps. Like, okay, I don't need to wear a mask at work now because all of us are vaccinated. It's like, it's getting to that. Can we progress out of this instead of just being stuck?
At my day job, we need to be vaccinated and we need to wear a mask. Must wear a mask inside the building. And at least contractors, which I am, have to be vaccinated. I don't actually know if the rule includes employees, but my guess is it does. But contractors, I know for sure, have to be vaccinated and wear a mask.
Yeah. Marty on Facebook says, I know 2 people that were in one of the Van Gogh tours that were sent home because they weren't vaccinated. So yeah, it's a real thing. It's happening. I know someone who lost about 10 days of work between 2 different jobs, again, because the client, they were booked and they had the job booked for, about a month before the client had changed their policy and decided that they wanted a fully vaccinated crew, and this person wasn't vaccinated and isn't interested in getting the vaccine. Again, not saying anything about their choices, but my advice was, more and more of this work is going to start.
Yeah, if you're in this business and you don't want to get the vaccine, move on to another job, because you can forget about working in this business.
Right. You can maybe drive the truck. Maybe, but probably not. But that's pretty much, you're going to be in an outside looking in kind of position if you do. And yeah, it's just the reality of it. But did anybody have anything else to add to any of this? Because I'd love to move on to a little less dark of topics for our Labor Day. Cool. Tim, sorry, you're in the UK, right, Tim? Or are you in Australia? I forget.
Australia.
Australia, right? So you're in the future, actually, right? That's
Yeah,
that's the
kind
case.
of.
Yeah. Is this this will be kind of like the one of the last things we before we move on from this topic. Are you seeing, just so we get another world view of this? What are you seeing on your side of the world in
Well, from
regards
what
to
I'm
like the
seeing,
vaccine debate?
let's see, of what of all the clients, frankly, all of my work has basically been cancelled for almost the last 12 months. I've done a handful of shows, and that this was pre all the vaccination stuff. We're actually, down here, we're actually in lockdown still.
Oh, okay.
So we've got 5K radius and 5 reasons to leave home. So it's basically work, shopping, and exercise.
Wow. So
Yeah.
no events at all. Okay. Wow.
No, and like we've had, especially over the last sort of 3 months, any events that were getting planned or happened have either been bumped out on like the second rehearsal day, or have gotten cancelled before we even start the bumping.
Wow.
So
Wow. So yeah. So it could be much more grim than what we're seeing here, and at least right now in the U.S. We're not in lockdowns, and events are still going forward. But whatever, if you're in the events industry, think about what you need to do to keep that trend going in the right direction. We don't want to end up going too far backwards. So that's that's unfortunate, Tim. Sorry. I wish I hope that Australia can get back to doing events. I know. I think the whole time you guys have been in a much stricter place than we were in the U.S. during certain times, but hopefully it loosens up enough, and the world, the whole thing with the variant. Hopefully we can get it under control enough that everybody can start getting back to what we all love to do. So with that, what else has people been up to? So let's talk about summer things. John Edelson, I would love to hear about like some of the stuff you've been doing, because I know you've had a whole bunch of projects going on with the aquarium and stuff. So give us a little.
First, I'll apologize for my camera falling down. I'm here building a rig to take out to our training with the California State Parks. And I've been spending my Labor Day laboring over a Mac M1, reinstalling the OS, and doing a little bit of playing with a new piece of software. There's nothing like doing new software. Let's see. I can do a picture-in-a-picture with my Cinemaker director. So we're just getting ready for a project that we have coming up next week. But you're talking about the jobs going away. I see different jobs opening up here. Our convention center is getting ready to have a virtual studio for hybrid events or for digital first events. Next week is Zoomtopia, and I'm beginning to see all these different new positions. So I think there's some people across fields. I think of Greg Gibson out of DC, who was a wedding photographer and lost all his weddings for a year. He's done over 400 Zoom conferences. So I think we're in for an interesting shift in the industry. They still need people to produce. They still need people to operate audio boards, cameras, gear. I think we're in for another year that won't be normal, and I don't know what normal will be again. But for me, I'm spending my day trying to figure out why my cables aren't working, why I dropped my iPhone while I was using it as my camera. You do get to see a little of the backyard. Normally, I'm hiding in the basement studio and have everything covered so I don't get natural light. My wife sort of refers that to as my mushroom growing state when I'm down there with just all the lights out. But what's been fun with this group is sort of following the life of various different people. I'm failing retirement. although I'm working a lot with the state parks, but as a volunteer. So it's been good for me to vicariously sort of experience what a lot of my friends have been going through and see where I could help out. I've sent some gear to some people, and Ed, it's been great that you guys have, I think, done this. I think Alex, Lindsay, office hours, Zoom test kitchens have all been things where it shows that there's a lot of heart in this industry and this group of people. So that's my Labor Day, and hopefully I'll stay on long enough until my iPhone battery dies, because the camera I have hooked up to this isn't working.
Yeah,
the office hours actually has been very interesting. I started watching it when we went on hiatus at work 3 weeks ago, and I've been on pretty much constantly since then. So you building your studio out, there was a lot of that going on today. Yeah, on after hours has cost a lot of people a lot of money while they've been unemployed. So you've just been on for 3 weeks. I think I showed up on week 2. And there are a number of people who've been there from the beginning. I think there's somewhere around 550 days. And it's interesting to go back and play them, because you sort of, you forget the time when before we knew what was happening, whether it be a vaccine. It will be a good archive of a oral history of what this field went through.
Everyone's home system before the upgrades, and everyone home system after they've been sitting home for a year.
Yeah, before the upgrade, early in the pandemic, back in March and April of 2020, I started. Me and 2 others, people, Pete Erskine and Kelly Epperson, started Practical Show Tech, where we did seminars, had manufacturers come on, and we did that for about 10 shows a week, 2 to 3 hour shows a week, until we got to about 75 or 80 shows. And then we were just so burned out, we couldn't do it anymore. Just had to put that on hiatus. Although my understanding is Kelly and Pete are planning on going to NAB and doing floor interviews at NAB.
That's great. Before I had found Office Hours, I was watching Practical Show Tech every single day, even when you guys went to the 2-a-days. And I was always on.
That was a rough schedule.
I even tuned in for those couple that you guys did in the middle of the night for like the other side of the world. There was like 2 or 3 that were like 1 in the morning. I was like,
right, yeah.
Of course I'll be on. Why not?
Right.
What do I have to go on?
For the Asian audience.
Yeah. So, Practical Show Tech. For if you haven't seen the archives, they're still there. I refer people who have been looking for information about Unity Intercom to. They did 2 episodes on Unity Intercom early in the pandemic. It was like episodes 6 and 8 or something like that. And I constantly send people to look at that, especially when they're thinking about using Unity Intercom, like a new server, and using it with Connect so that they can have on-site, I/O for their Unity Intercom. So
it's funny that you mentioned that, because I can't tell you how many times at NAB I walked past the Unity Intercom and said, I ought to try this. And it wasn't until pandemic and people like that really showed and explained it that I actually attempted to use it.
Yeah, no, Unity's great. And excuse me, where the theater I was working at over at SUNY Purchase, right before the pandemic, we had been putting in, we'd had the Unity server for a while, but then we finally had interfaced our 4 2-wire party line intercoms, our 4 theaters that each had 2 channels of party line intercom from Clearcom. So 8 channels total of hardwire, 2-wire comm through Dante interfaces going into our Unity system. And then we have 6 radio channels into Dante interfaces that go into our Unity server. And it was great. I was, so right before the pandemic, I had been deep into Unity and setting that up with Justin Herminghaus, who was a regular on the panel for a while. And, sitting at home on my couch with my phone, dialed into any one of our 4 theaters and be able to talk to people and call them on the radio just from one spot was a lot of fun and a great test. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hit, and then like 5 or 6 episodes in, they're talking about Unity. I was like, oh, this is great. I was loving it. It was very topical for me at the time because I was so deep into that world. And then now I use Unity all the time. A lot of my clients are using Unity Cloud. They don't have their own servers, but yeah, it's a great tool, and it's totally invaluable to me and some of my clients through the pandemic for doing virtual events and having communications with people all over the country.
Shows how creative people have to be in a crisis. For me, the example of creativity, the California State Parks next week are having their training, which they had to cancel last year. It's face-to-face, but because of size restrictions, rather than having the 75 people we would have face-to-face, we're going to have some 20 people at the training facility, and then we'll have another 50 outside. But a tradition of the training there was to have a traditional campfire and roasting marshmallows. And how do you do that virtually? And it turns out there was a couple in Maryland who both lost their husbands, both lost their jobs. And they started a business which is called city bonfires. And you get a little tin can, a lighter, a bag of mushrooms, s'mores, and chocolate, and a marshmallow roasting stick. So part of my gear that I'm packing for this event next week is a little tutorial on how to do your own marshmallow roast when you're remote in a Zoom conference. Yeah. A lot of creativity out there. What can I say?
That's awesome. Does Zoom yet have an app for getting the delicious smell of a s'more?
Well, Zoomtopia is coming up next week. Who knows?
That would be awesome if they can figure out how to break that wall. That would be great. Very cool. No, and there's been tons of creative Zoom uses during the pandemic. For a while, a buddy of mine was running like an open mic night, and that was interesting. Being in the music industry, I was involved in music for a long time, helping people navigate the audio features. When Zoom updated all the audio, added the high fidelity music mode and all that, there were a lot of phone calls I got on how to get better audio on Zoom, and that was great. And that further helped the creativity of people, like you mentioned, John, like that, where they can now take this tool and use it to the most of its ability and get a good product that they could be proud to share with people. So
when you think of it, what Andy did with liminal media, with connecting Zoom with OSC and regular stage managers, and we've taken a little bit of what does it mean to produce a show, which most people didn't think a Zoom event was a show, and it's just fascinating seeing how people are using what would be traditionally theater tools and integrating into Zoom events. Or traditional television tools. I work in a television control room where we have 12 Cisco codecs and 2 computers. We got 2 Mac Minis and 12 Cisco codecs. And when we can have live events, we have a anchor desk studio, and we have an auditorium where we can do panels on the auditorium stage. But when we can't have people live, they come in on Zoom. Every person on a panel is an individual Zoom call, and they come in. We have a Sony large format Sony switcher. I've got a small format SSL console, sound console, and it's all done just like a TV show. And then we distribute it back out over Zoom, or it goes out over fiber to a webcasting service. It's interesting that there's a certain sort of language that calls for TV, and there's language that calls for theater, and a language for calls for live events. I wonder if we'll ever settle on one, or there'll always be translation back to do I say go, ready to, take? Who knows?
It's all got to stay separate so it stays confusing. That's
it does stay confusing.
yeah.
Well, that's why I like standards so much. There's so many of them to choose from.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they all mean something different. Yeah, no, precisely, John. That's it is tough when you work in many different worlds. Even as a freelancer, as an audio person. So if I'm doing music, I tell people that I'm a front of house engineer. If I'm doing a corporate event, I tell them I'm the A1 typically, because that's just the language that they speak in those different circles. It's the same role, but it's a different, just a different audience who understands what you're talking about. So yeah, those are very interesting things. But yeah, it would be cool if we could consolidate all these things. And we're starting to see a crisscrossing of some of these things, these spillover that this year has made happen, because a lot of these live streams have become more like what Mac's doing, where they're more like broadcasts, and we're seeing sports spill into other worlds, and people who weren't doing any kind of sports things now working on that. I've done a handful of sports things, and I'm not a sports guy, and I don't usually work in that world, and that's what I'm seeing. So yeah, it's one day maybe we'll all speak the same language, but
That's where you learn about announcer boxes.
yeah.
Well, I want to know what the 1A at the Guns N' Roses, I can't even speak, at Guns N' Roses concert that was up in Napa, where they shut it down because they went past a curfew. But the crowd hadn't been told, so they sang the rest of the song. I'm sure the neighbors loved it.
That's yeah. Well, I hadn't heard about that one, but that's I guess the crowd gets what they want, or they're going to do whatever they want. But, who else wants to talk about something they've done? Justin, I don't think did we come to you yet? But what you've had going on this summer? Anything fun and exciting? Doesn't have to be AV. It could be like if you did a really cool trip or did something interesting.
I'm not gonna lie. Kind of boring over here. Not much that I can think of. Worked more than I normally would in previous times, prior to last year, which is weird. Kind of, instead of being dead in the summer, it's kind of been a trickle of work. But other than that, not really much of anything. Just kind of being here at the house.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, did you go on any fun trips? Did you do anything non-AV related?
Not really, no.
All right.
Nope.
Well, at least you were busier this year than previous years. So that wouldn't have happened if you didn't have all the virtual work, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, no. It's before virtual. Yeah, summer's dead.
Gotcha. And then Mac, you've been working, you said.
Yeah, I've been
the last couple of weeks. Yeah,
I've been working. Except the last couple of weeks we were on a hiatus, and then in May I had some health issues, so I was out for a while. But I did come back from my health issues in time to take a week on Cape Cod at the end of June. So
that was nice.
It's always good. My family takes a bunch of cottages on the beach that we've been going to for 60 years.
Very nice.
It is nice.
As a kid, Cape Cod was a spot that my dad took us camping a few times. He liked it out there. He went to school out in Boston as a kid. He was born in Boston, then moved to here in New York, and went to a private school in just outside Boston, where he trained horses, of all things. But he always liked Massachusetts, and we'd go, maybe not every year, but once every other year, out to the Cape and
the Cape's fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that sounds great. Good that you got out, that you weren't stuck just working all summer, and you had at least a week to enjoy yourself. Who have we heard from? Oh, Tim. I know that you said you guys have been in lockdown. So, what have you been doing to not go completely stir crazy?
Well, because I'm more a little bit sort of freelance in the AV industry as it is, so I'm actually working pretty well full time at a school at the moment, strange enough, testing Mac OS upgrades for Big Sur and M1 compatibility. So it's what I'm doing a lot of at the moment. So, but apart from that, not really doing much.
So yeah, you're one of the people who found another job, albeit I guess in a related field, but you found something full time instead of just waiting out the freelance world, huh?
I was sort of already. I've been sort of full time, semi full time at this school for nearly 7 years now. So the AV industry was more of a hobby that sort of built out into a lot more weekend work, and because my main industry is theatre work. So yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. Yes, you come from just a different sort of background from maybe some of the other people, but that's great. Is there anybody I didn't talk to yet? I want to make sure everybody gets. I think Brent, I asked you what you've been doing, right? Yeah, you. I think you're one of the first people that came.
Yeah, we talked earlier.
I should be taking better notes today. As you can see,
it's all good, Ed.
I'm kind of flying solo today, so trying to keep track of a bunch of things. We actually looks like we have a question that came in on the YouTube side.
No,
so, what?
it's well, there's a spam one on there I was trying to show you, but
yeah, I saw there was a spam one, but then it looks like a question came in from Fast Eddie. In the new virtual events, digital first, what would be a short list of required skills? What's the digital/remote C-wrench?
Oh my.
Yeah. So what's a short list of skills?
One needs to know how to do everything.
Yeah. Multitasking.
There is no audio guy. There is no lighting guy. There is no video guy. Everybody needs to be able to be multi-textual. That might sound weird.
Yeah, I agree. It's very much there's and Mac will probably have a different opinion because he's in a different stratosphere than I live in. But most of the stuff that I'm doing these days, it's very much one-man band kind of things where there's one person in a hot seat operating a lot of things with a lot on their shoulders and funneling all of your points of failure into one place. So I would say...
and hopefully the one person job is sort of like, okay, that's unsustainable.
Right.
That grows out into, okay, we can do this with two people, but it's still the audio guy is the lighting guy, is the video guy, is the everything else guy.
Yep.
If there were a C-wrench that would fix internet, everybody would have one.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
For me, a good cable tester, I've found I've had more problems with bad Ethernet cables and bad USB-C cables, or the difference between the various levels of 2, 3, and 4. So I find many times I'm pulling cables in and out. So if there were a decent cable tester that would really tell me what was happening, that'd be great.
I bought all that stuff just before COVID, and then COVID sent me into a different industry that I don't use it at all anymore. I have a fiber microscope and cleaning kit. I have a Cat5 tester that does, reflection meter, tells you where the fault is in the cable. Never use them anymore. I have a RF spectrum analyzer. Don't use it anymore.
Yeah.
No justice, is there, Mark?
Yeah, no, I built my end of 2019 purchase before the end of the year was like a whole new tech kit, and I bought a ton of stuff to fill it with, and then my tech kit sat for months and months and months. So
I did pretty much the same thing. It was, I said, we're moving to fiber. This is the future. I bought all the fiber tools, and then boom, I don't do that anymore.
Yep. Yeah,
and frankly, I'm so comfortable in the job I'm in. I doubt that I would go back.
I don't blame you. I do not blame you. Yeah. So, short list of required skills is going to be a high stress tolerance and the ability to multitask and troubleshoot.
And network troubleshoot.
Yeah, networking. Yeah, absolutely. The digital remote C-wrench. So the great internet is going to be there's never enough bandwidth. That's kind of, I don't know. That's my take on it. So hopefully
and everything is IP nowadays. So it's, if you know how to network.
I'm kind of laughing because what I learned sorry.
Go ahead, Iris.
What I learned about networking, I learned from doing AV. So now that I have a Mac lab in the school, and I never touched Mac before the AV, I'm not always waiting for IT. I'm going, well, can I do this myself? Like, I have an access code. Can I just go off and do this and not wait for you guys?
Yeah, it's good to have that knowledge. I think even besides IT networking is the people skills to network, because right now we have an unprecedented amount of access to people within our industry. Over the last 18 months, programs like this, office hours like we talked about earlier, Practical Show Tech, all these community-based shows and environments and streaming platforms that are streaming environments that we've been dealing with Discord and all these ways that we're communicating, is we have more access to other people in our industry that we wouldn't have had due to geographic limitations prior to the pandemic, or that we wouldn't have sought out as easily because we had our own actual network of people that we knew in the physical space, being able to be close to people and stuff.
Yeah.
So having those skills and being able to make these connections, is totally a skill that I think you should have. And if you don't, that's something where maybe you should think about working on it, because even when we get back to in person, I always say that AV industry is a hospitality and customer service business. The tech stuff, that's important, but if you're not good with the clients or not good with the people that you're working with, it's you're not going to go as far as you possibly could. Matt, you were going to say something?
Well, just that I agree with the opening up your network. I mean, it used to be we worked in a relatively large industry, but we worked in small groups. I mean, there was a group of technicians that I worked with all the time, and I would run into when pharma shows used to be a big deal. Pfizer used to do this meeting where they had 13 ballrooms, and so there was 13 A-level crews would show up for this meeting, and you would see friends you only saw once a year on the Pfizer show because you worked in this group of 20 people that did the shows you did, and those people worked in similar groups, and you very rarely crossed paths. And now we're crossing paths a lot more, and I think it's a good thing for the industry. And I hope it comes back enough that we all get to take advantage of that.
Absolutely. I think it's also been very easy to find the right people for a job, because now you're not limited to a geographic location. And because many of us are doing remote work where we're not in the same place anywhere, we're working across the internet from across the country, we can find the right, those right A-list kind of people for at least the job that we're doing. So yeah, no, that's great point, Mac.
Yeah,
for sure.
working remotely really opens that up to everybody.
Exactly. Oh yeah, for sure. Sorry. I'm just trying to keep track of everything happening on all of social. Absolutely. Again, those communities like Office Hours community and here AV Educate, AV Tech Talks, we put people together that, again, would not have met. Tim's in Australia, so the chance of our paths crossing other than here would have been pretty slim prior to the pandemic, because I've never been to Australia. I don't know if Tim's ever been to New York, but I didn't have any plans to go to Australia. So
I've been meaning to go since the 70s when my brother moved there, and I've never been to visit him, although he has come here to visit me half a dozen times since then.
Oh, I would love to go there, but yeah, I just I don't work enough to make enough money to go there, so that's my problem. And everything wants to kill you there. So
he went there in the mid 70s when they used to have this program where they would pay for your airfare if you would come and teach. There was a shortage of teachers apparently, and he taught for a few years, decided he hated it, went back to school there and became an architect, and he's been a successful architect for 25 or 30 years.
That's pretty awesome. That's awesome. I see, if I went there, I just don't know how I wouldn't fall from being upside down all the time.
It's tough. You got to wear those gummy shoes.
The gummy shoes. That's what it is.
He talks like an Australian, but they all think he still talks like an American.
That's funny. My wife kind of gets the same thing when we go back to Michigan. They say that she talks like a New Yorker, and I'm like, no. She talks like someone who's lived in New York a while, but definitely still has a Michigan thing.
But I do think this international group of people in the field, who would have thought that I get my best advice about my mixed pre from Mickey in the Philippines, that my play out bees from Jonas in Germany. And then when I can't sleep and I get up in the middle of the night to, do something to stay busy, I've got people from South Africa and England, coaching me on. So, I hope that part of the COVID doesn't go away as we get busier. I mean, for me, I'm an old guy, so I stay pretty close to home because I'm quote a high risk group. But now when I find myself going out and having to drive 20 minutes to an hour to a meeting, spend a half hour looking for a parking space, I go, I'll just go back to my Zoom meetings.
I drive an hour into work in the morning because I go into work at 6 o'clock in the morning, so there's no traffic, but it's maybe 2 hours coming home in traffic.
Where do you work?
I live in Lower Manhattan. I live about 40 miles north of the city.
Gotcha.
Well, John, so I think to the point you just made, I don't think that part will go away, because at this point we've made connections with people, and I think that those are here to stay, because as Max said, you could be on job sites with some people that you only cross paths with once a year, and it's like, oh great, hey, how you been, and you catch up, and you still have those connections because they were pre-existing. So I think even in a post-COVID world, or a return to a more in-person and, smaller geographical area of work that we end up in, we'll still maintain those connections with the people who we've, been associating with all this time, these last 18 months, because at this point we've gone through this whole thing as a global community, and I don't think that those bonds are going to get broken just because we start going back to boring in-person events and whatnot. So
I actually think the global community is going to grow because the technology hasn't changed, and just people connect with people who connect with people who connect with people. And I just think that's going to actually increase.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Especially, once technology makes it faster and easier to do it, to make to connect with people, as 5G rolls out everywhere, and a Zoom call ends up looking amazing on our phone because we're not worried about bandwidth. Then it's going to be much easier to maintain these relationships with people. We did get another question from Fast Eddie 760 on YouTube. He asks, how has customer care changed with Virtual First in regard to setting expectations, defining show event parameters, and what's included contrasted with the 100% in-person events? So that's a great question. I would say, in my experience at least, there is a lot of hand-holding with virtual events because it's very new to the clients, especially if they were existing clients that we've had for fully 100% in-person events prior to the pandemic. This is all new territory for a lot of those clients. So especially in the beginning, there was a lot of hand-holding, assuring them okay, yeah, we're going to make this work. And then there's always a lot of the pre-production on events now is huge. It's mostly pre-production. We'll do days and days of pre-recordings and test streams if there's both live and pre-record stuff. All this, it's just so much pre-production for maybe a 1 hour streamed event, and that wasn't the case before. So there's definitely a lot of that in the customer care. Setting expectations, that's the one thing that I have to remind clients often is the variables that we can't control when it comes to a digital first event. If you're bringing in remote callers, you can't control their internet or their quality or what equipment they have to look good. And then on the deliverable side, if your attendees or your audience is suffering from bad internet, there's not much you can do with those sorts of things. So just being clear about those. And yeah,
there's still a certain amount of client service where you're dealing with presenters, for instance. I mean, we used to deal with presenters. They would come out and rehearse on stage, and we'd, help them with their presentation. Now we spend time having them adjust their laptop screen so that they get a decent shot of themselves, or trying to convince them to use some sort of a microphone as opposed to just the laptop speaker, although that's a largely losing battle. But we still spend a lot of time with getting cameras aimed correctly to frame a decent shot, and working on room lighting, window blinds up and down. Do you have lighting in front of you instead of all that backlight? I mean, that kind of client service is still going on. It's just different than it is when we're in a live meeting.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely, Mac. The other part of that, besides the presenter prep, is way more than what we used to do. Kind of gone are the days, especially in virtual, of where the presenter walks up, hands you a flash drive for the presentation they're about to go give, because we can't do that like we used to. And trying to hammer home deadlines of I need to have content as of this time if we're going to have the most up-to-date version of whatever slides or whatever the presentation or videos. That's still a constant battle I'm finding in virtual, because it used to be you could really just hand someone a flash drive and boom, they were on stage. That's not the case anymore. The closest I've had this past year was I had a client who insisted they were going to use Google Sheet, or whatever the Google version of PowerPoint is.
I think it's just Slides.
Slides, yeah, Google Slides is what it is. They insisted they were going to use Google Slides, and they were literally, I'm watching them update in real time presentations seconds before I'm supposed to be taking that presentation. And that was the closest equivalent to handing me the flash drive on your way up to the lectern as it can get.
With Google Slides, I've had people in the audience say, "Okay, refresh now." Like, what do you mean? It's like the presentation is still happening. It's like refresh now because I just put in the new numbers.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I haven't had that yet. I've had it literally up to the seconds before.
Oh wait, you'll
live.
get it.
Yeah. Thankfully, I don't have too many clients that are using Google Slides, but yeah, that's the technology makes it so easy that I guess you can do it to a point, but yeah, it's still
this is why I miss slides.
For that pressure, that last minute changes.
Because if you want to reshoot a slide,
Yeah.
it's gonna take a day and a half.
Right, Ektachrome slides. You need a 4-ox machine.
I miss that.
Yeah. A lot of chatting going on in the chat. I can't keep up with the chat here in Zoom. I'm glad you guys are all talking. If anybody has anything to add from that chat, feel free to jump on in. And thanks, Fast Eddie, for the question. Hopefully we got it answered. And if anybody has anything to add to how has customer care changed? I mean, Brent, you're dealing with you guys have been dealing with customers all throughout. So how has customer care changed for you guys as you pivoted?
Our main thing is we have become a venue and we are not the supplier.
Right, because you've built some in-house studios. That's what you mean?
So people are coming to us and whatnot, and we are not. It's a little hard. We aren't the same as we were, where if a customer asks for something, it's like we're going to be jumping all over it. It's more like, well, no, you're coming here, so this is what we're offering. Sorry.
Okay. So it's a very
I don't know if
approach.
that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. But you also, because you're at home, you have access to more of the gear that you owned and all that. So
we built tons of crap. We just finished building our third studio. I have 10 different freaking virtual control rooms that I'm in charge of. And, if you want to come here and repaint the wheel or remake how the wheel's going to work, no, this is what you paid for. Sorry.
Got it. So you have because you're offering something that is somewhat unique, you have a little more control over what you can offer to the client, where in the past maybe you were jumping through hoops.
In the past it's like, okay, whatever the client wants, we're going to jump through these hoops and we're going to make it happen. Now it's like, oh, you want to make us jump through hoops. It's just two sides of the same story, essentially.
Gotcha. So that's it seems like a total, like a 180 on that, on your end at least. So very interesting.
Well, it's been kind of tough. So.
Yeah. How about you, John? What's changed? I know that you're retired, but you're still doing the work with the park. So what's changed kind of on your end? How has customer care changed, and with the events that you guys are doing? And
well, for the park service, the big change with the electronic field trips is before it was a interpreter at a park, a classroom teacher in a classroom, and a classroom full of students. When COVID hit and the students were all dispersed, that was a whole different animal, because it was actually the interpreter and the teacher as a partner, but all the students were, dispersed on various Zoom calls. For me, the customers or the clients that I think of my customers are the park interpreters who I've been trying to help them sort of up their game. And when I was working on campus, although I was retired, I taught in this field. So my first video conference was in 1977 using slow scan television over an RCA satellite between a medical school and a ship at sea. So, the fact we're doing video conferencing now, that's old hat. We've done it since the 70s. But the big challenge for the faculty was how to set up their facilities, convince them that they needed better lighting, better microphone, better speakers. What's been interesting, because some of the consulting I've been doing here is with our convention center. And for them, it's been, dealing with the COVID restrictions. So I remember, going in the convention center, having somebody take my temperature, doing, hand sanitizer, signing a form, and having arrows on the floor as to which way we needed to go. And now that we aren't taking temperatures, people do, some of the conferences have vaccine check stations where you show your vaccination ID. It's a lot of different customers that we handle in different ways, but for me, the interesting thing is seeing us go back to what we're calling the new normal, and what does it mean to be an audience member versus what does it mean to be a presenter, what does it mean to be the people producing the show. We've rewritten some of the rules of how those people engage with each other.
Got it. Yeah. Now, so I remember earlier this year you did a cool event where you guys did some underwater filming, and that was actually, you did some live. Some of that was live, right? Or was it?
It was all live. In fact, probably the best thing that happened this year for me was, and we're talking about the network. We've had problems. We were trying to do some electronic field trips from underwater. We did our first underwater field trip at Lake Tahoe at Emerald Bay, where they had their first underwater trail. And so we had divers, interpreters talking about that trail. And of course, we had all the issues with the bubble breathing, noise, and how to get it onto a Zoom call. But through office hours, we got connected with a really amazing A1 audio guy. And he developed a system of being able to, probably the simplest way to describe it is that they were able to duct out the breathing noise. So if you go to World Ocean Day, California State Parks on YouTube, the last half hour, you'll see 30 minutes of two divers talking underwater to kids in schools. And the divers sound like they're on I used to say an AT&T phone call, but actually it's better than a phone call because you can actually hear them. So that's been one of the technology successes that we had. And now we're helping the Monterey Bay Aquarium because they're probably going to use the same audio technology.
Nice. Yeah, so that's, but you probably, had it not been for the pandemic, you might not have done that live underwater stream. Is that
well? I think we were in the mode of trying to figure out how to do underwater events. What probably the biggest change was that before the pandemic, we treated each of one of our field trips as an individual event between one interpreter and one classroom. But for World Ocean Day, we learned about Keaton out of Illinois, who demonstrated very early on using his truck with a cell service and StreamYard broadcasting weather reports on the road. We thought, well, gee whiz, we could probably do something like this with the California State Parks if he could do it from his Tahoe. And so then we ended up for the World Ocean Day using StreamYard and brought in 5 different parks to the show, which is something we probably wouldn't have done pre-COVID.
Very cool. Very cool. So that's an interesting, just difference. Like you said, you might not have done the multiple sites linked pre-COVID, but very, very cool that you were able to do that, and that then you were also able to involve that office hours community to to get those solutions and find the right people. As Mac was talking about, how it's easy, now we can find people. So that's all very, very cool, John. Let me know if you have that link. I sent you one. If that's the right one, I'll put it out on social. Just let me know if that's actually the right one, and then I'll make sure that we share that too, because that was such a cool event. I got to see some of that with the underwater stuff, and the fact that you were streaming it live is just like, some people work hard just trying to be able to stream their gameplay from on their computer, and you guys are like streaming underwater and stuff. So that's pretty impressive and pretty cool. That's kind of stuff that's is interesting to me. It's like, man, how are they overcoming all these technological challenges to do, not just do it, but do it live and make it.
Yeah, that's
by the way, if you guessed
that's the
correctly,
correct
that means
link.
that you passed the test.
I will make sure I put that out there. Then I'll put that.
Nice. Yeah, so these urchin tests here,
Sorry.
that's the internal skeleton. of
We're
that
hearing it
urchin
back through
organism.
yours, John. Yeah, thanks. Very cool. I'll make sure I put that out in a second. Cool. So anybody else have anything to add? Anything, Justin, do you have anything to weigh in on that? Anything changed with you, from virtual to how it was with in person? And hybrid. I think you're doing some hybrid events too. Like, are you finding there's some differences, and especially in the expectations or defining the parameters in those areas?
Yeah, I agree with what everyone said. I don't really probably have anything really unique to add, but yeah, I mean, it was definitely an interesting changeover after coming from traditional video roll into this. I mean, some things were still the same. Like I'd get some graphics calls, and it's kind of universal. But then, enter into vMix and some of that other stuff, and becoming the one-man band.
Right. So as the one-man band, that's another good thing. Another thing we could maybe mention. How does that change your dynamic with who you're working for? Maybe you used to be on a crew of people at a live event, but now that you're a single, how has that changed for you for finding the work or getting picked up? How does somebody put their trust in you to be that one person, one operator for such a large thing? Have you found that to be a difference from when we were doing in person? Do you find that it's more burdensome, having all that extra responsibility?
Not terribly for me. I mean, I know enough about audio and video and even some lighting, but that's not so much in the virtual world. Enough that when we did pivot, it was really just a learning curve of mostly software and making myself learn all that. And then once figuring it out, which I usually tend to pretty easily, it's just always had a knack for it. That was really it. Once they figured out I could do that, and I did a couple shows for them, I would pretty much get on the call list routinely. And I still have some clients that I'm routinely doing virtual stuff. Some of their end clients are moving back towards in-person stuff. I do have some of that stuff as of now still on the calendar. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like selling it, getting in there, making sure I can actually do it. And then for me, the proof is when the phone calls and emails are, hey, we've got another one. So it's worked out for me.
Very cool. Yeah. And it's good when you get that repeat work. That's there are so many techs out there, and it's great that when you get the call back. I'm starting to see it, like you mentioned, you're starting to see some of the virtual stuff go back to being in person. I'm seeing the same thing. I have a handful of bookings. I mean, I think it's a little different in down in Florida for you than it is up here. I think there's a lot of people in New York doing the wait and see game to see what's going on. New York did enact more restrictions recently for indoor gatherings and whatnot. So I have a lot of holds. I have a ton of holds, and here and there I'm picking up more stuff. But I think I'm gonna see some of my things that are planned to be in person end up going either back to virtual or something. You know, we're gonna see what happens. But I actually just signed on to do. Anyone who's been in the New York area anytime recently has probably heard of the Great Pumpkin Blaze. So it's like a Halloween attraction that thousands of pumpkins carved, and they shape them into sculptures, and there's lighting, and there's nice spooky sounds and stuff. So they added one of those in Long Island.
Ichabod Crane Land.
Yeah, there's one in Cortland, up in Cortland Manor, and then they added one last year in Long Island. So I got tapped to be the on-site person for the Long Island one, and I decided to take that role. It's going to be 5 days a week for about 7 weeks, and part of my thinking was, I've had one solid cancellation because of Delta variant, where the client canceled the event, didn't even do it as a virtual, just said we're not going to do it. And I was just, I'm kind of playing it safe right now, and I'm going to go with the outdoor event that last year ran even mid-COVID in October, September through part of September through to November. And I figure, even though it's not the most glamorous of things, I'm going to go with the thing that I'm fairly confident is not going to get canceled on me, and I'll just take that work and the safe bet. Plus, I work Wednesday to Sunday, so that means I could be here every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time for AV Tech Talk. So that was, the biggest selling feature. But yeah, so because I don't want to play the wait and have a third of my work disappear, I decided to jump on this other thing. And they need the criteria they wanted was someone, there's lighting, and I'm going to be doing lighting, and I'm going to be doing audio. Because it's installed and it's really just maintaining those sorts of things. But they needed somebody who is strong in Dante, because all the audio is Dante. So rather than picking up a lighting person and then have to try to teach them Dante, they wanted to bring someone in who was Dante strong and maybe not as lighting strong, but can manage. So that's how I ended up on it, and that's what I'm going to be doing for.
This isn't one of those things where they fling the pumpkins, right? See how far.
Oh, I wish, man, that would be amazing. A pumpkin and a trebuchet, the pumpkin chunkin, is like the coolest thing ever. I just happen to like trebuchets, so I think that's really cool. But no, this is not, unfortunately. But it is like 10,000, hand carved pumpkins, and you walk through it, and it's all sorts of fun. I'll try to take some video to bring back. And show what it looks like, because it is a pretty cool spectacle to see. But yeah, I made a choice. I said I'm gonna take the sure thing, and the thing I feel is a little more safe for right now, because I wasn't sure what was going to be happening. So I'm gonna hopefully there's gonna be Wi-Fi there, so hopefully I'll catch up on some Netflix or something, and I'll be asking everybody for their suggestions on what I should watch while I'm sitting around for many hours waiting for things to be maintained. So that's kind of where I'm going. But yeah, I'm looking for, it's not as cushy a job as Mac, but I know it'll be there day in and day out. So it is a rain or shine thing. So I actually have to go get a new pair of boots, I think. So
I assume you get to eat all the pumpkin pie you want also with this gig.
I hope that is absolutely true. Pumpkin pie and hot apple cider would be great. Pumpkin pie actually is my favorite dessert. So just saying, if I get to meet any of you in person,
just saying, I make the best pumpkin pie.
Do you? Ah. So
I think so.
So Mac and I are going to have to. We were talking in the pre-show about grilling, and maybe all that spare meat I have, we'll have to do an exchange. I'll come up. I'll grill some and.
Yeah, I think a little trade going on there. Maybe a little pumpkin pie for a little venison.
That works for me. That absolutely works for me.
What can I trade for that tight cable kit you have, Max? Then we'd have everything done. Maybe send you some California almonds.
Ooh.
I just want a special delivery of venison.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk. We'll talk in the post show. That would be great. You know, and I'm going to make a Discord channel now on the AV Tech Talks Discord of, you know, trade and barter, and what do people have extra stuff of that they want to, what do they need, and maybe people can trade and barter for the things that they don't have that somebody else does and wants to get rid of. So, anybody want a club PA system? Because I'm looking to sell mine and empty out my storage unit. So I'll post that. I can trade that for the right thing maybe, but we'll figure that out. Cool. So we're at almost at 8:30 p.m. here on the East Coast. So I'd love to see if there's anything else anybody wants to talk about. Like, you know, we've kind of talked about some of the industry, some of the things that are going on, heard from people what they've been doing. Anybody have any exciting projects coming up, or, you know, anything that anybody wants to chat about while we just got a few minutes? I think we answered Fast Eddie's question. I'm going to look and see if there's anything else that came in on the YouTube. Nothing else right now on the YouTube and nothing on the Facebook, but yeah, anything we want to chat about? Because otherwise we can wrap it up early, or whatever. We're open. This is an open kind of forum. Oh, wow. Nobody's got anything going on right now. Interesting. Oh, Tim, what's that? What's up?
I know this might seem a bit of an odd question, but as a audio tech, this has played on my mind a little bit with having to do with live streams a bit lately. Is there a difference between SDI as a standard and cable and the standard like RG6 used for antenna cabling and other things?
Oh, so is there a difference in between the cabling itself that you would use for SDI versus antenna cable? I'll let Mac.
Well, you know, I was just thinking, and I'm not really sure. Antenna cable is generally 50 ohm cable, and video cable is generally 72 ohm cable. But SDI, I'm not positive about. I have actually not clear on what cable SDI uses.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is the impedance of the cable is a difference for sure. SDI would be a 72 ohm, 75 ohm nominal, whatever cable. And yeah, so I mean that's the main difference. And it would be obviously using a 70. You know, the antenna cable will use a 50 ohm B and C connector as opposed to a 75 ohm B and C connector. Otherwise, I mean, not really. It's like if you go to Belden's site and look at what you know, the uses for cable, you should see that they have different, you know, different versions for or different cable that they make for, specifically for antenna. You know, like you said, like an RJ6 is going to be a 50 ohm. Otherwise, I don't know that there's much difference. It's a coax cable. But and if Mac can't think of anything, or just isn't, is it just that you're?
Well, I do know that there is specific cable for SDI, so it definitely would not be antenna cable,
right?
But it might be a higher spec of RG59 or one of those types of cables.
Yeah. That's a great question. I'm going to try to get a deeper actual technical answer to that. Because I know what we usually buy for SDI cables if we're rolling our own. Same with antenna cables, but why do we choose one or the other? And is it anything more than just the impedance?
Well, no, I'm sure it has to do with the rated bandwidth of the cable.
Well, that too, yeah. Obviously, a 3G SDI cable, can has more bandwidth than a 12G versus a SD SDI cable, which is 1 1.5 gigabits per second versus 3 gigabits per second and all
Right.
that. But which doesn't much matter in the antenna cable world. So yeah, no, I'm gonna dive into that, and I'll try to come back to it with a better answer for you, Tim. I'll make a note of that. Because that is a thing. Iris, we were just talking about in the pre-show about cable and how it's a very easily forgotten item, especially by students. So
Who don't think they need cable and things are going to magically work without a cable? Yes.
Ricardo Hicks on Facebook added impedance and bandwidth and connectors are rated as well. Yep. So that's all the stuff we mentioned. I just don't know if there's anything else besides. I mean that's pretty much it, right? Those are the things you have to look at: the impedance and the bandwidth, and that your connectors are correct. Mac, since you're kind of probably a bit more of an RF guy than I am, you want to talk at all about like loss? What are some of the things that affect your antenna cable while we're kind of on this topic? Because we haven't done an RF episode here on AV Tech Talk. So.
Right. Well, there's certainly loss in antenna cables, and you have to have a loss budget for your antennas. I mean, you might have a paddle antenna that has some amount of gain, 6 dB of gain, 3 dB, whatever. And that's hopefully making up for loss in the cable. And you can look up on lots of websites what the loss in the cable is, whether it's RG58, which has fairly high loss, or you can go up to the fatter cables like RG8 or LMR 400, which is a very low loss cable, or some of the equivalents to it. And the ultimate is you want to come out with zero loss between the antenna and the receiver. So, if you have an antenna with 6 dB of gain, you can afford 6 dB of loss in the cable.
Right.
So you can look up on websites, see charts of various cable types of what they lose at what frequency, because the cable also has a frequency response. I mean, if you look at an antenna cable on a spectrum analyzer, you can measure the frequency response of the antenna, of the cable, and it's not going to be flat. It's going to have frequencies where it has better efficiency and frequencies where it is less efficient. And so you need to make sure that the frequency band you're operating in and the loss budget is acceptable.
Right. And some of the things that affected are as you mentioned, the thickness of the cable, what class it's in, and then the distance of the cable is going to be another thing.
Right.
And
the length of it is there's going to be additional loss the longer the cable is. And generally speaking, the thicker cables are going to be lower loss.
Right. And then what you do with it at either end, if you run an antenna cable into a passive splitter, for example, or if you run it into a wireless mic receiver that then has a pass-through for the antenna cable, you're going to see loss typically, depending on which gear you're using, but you're typically going to see some amount of loss for each of those connections. If you're not using a proper combiner, for example, or a distribution amplifier or something like that.
Right. If you're just using a passive splitter, or worse yet, or a T, you're going to definitely get lost, because that's going to load down the antenna. But a good antenna splitter like from Shure or Sennheiser or Electrosonics or any of the major manufacturers is going to have a small gain stage in it that makes up for the split to however many splits it is. I mean, a 1:2 split is a -3 dB, and a 1:3 is 6 or 9. I forget now exactly what it was. But it's more. The more outputs you have, the more loss you have.
Yeah. And And Mac, just to combat that, you just turn your paddles up. You turn the gain up to +10 on those, right? And that totally fixes everything.
Yeah, no.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to make up that gain at the antenna side, at the paddle side, because you're just going to amplify the noise and you're going to be picking up more than you want.
Yeah, you're going to pick up more noise anywhere you put an amplifier in, and running your paddles at +10, it means there's an amplifier right in the paddle, and if you don't need the 6 dB of gain plus the 10 dB from the antenna, then you're just going to be having a bunch of noise and overloading the input. It's not really going to help.
Right.
You want to have zero loss from the antenna to the receiver.
Yeah, I think bringing Pete on and doing a proper RF episode or and
he's out in Vegas on a show right now, but Henry Cohen is probably in town.
Yeah, and Justin is good friends with Henry, so
right.
We can.
Justin and I both used to work for Henry.
Yep. So we'll just have to make that happen, and talk RF one day, and then get Pete and maybe Jason Glass come in and talk about comms too. That way we can put everybody to sleep. They can be complex and dry topics sometimes, but they're very misunderstood and great to dive into. So yeah, we'll put
Pete's
that
got green hair. Yeah.
Yes, he does. We got another question, and I don't know that this is if Bodie was here, this would be a great question. But
I tried to help him.
Okay, you did. Great. Can I overclock a Zotac Twin Edge OC RTX 3070?
If it has OC in the model, that's usually yes. I sent him a couple of links to maybe do some research on that, but
cool. So there is your answer. I'm not a that's Bodie's world. Bodie lives in that world. I don't know everything about every graphics card out there. So, but yes, that does sound about right, Justin. So thank you for answering that. We try to get to all the questions here. But yeah, we're going to wind down shortly. Is there anything else here from the panel? Anybody have anything they want to chat about on this fine Labor Day that's coming to a close? Anybody working tomorrow? Anybody got something they have to do tomorrow?
nothing till Saturday for me.
Oh, nice.
I got to call the repairman to come and fix my refrigerator again.
I have to go retake part of a test.
Yeah, I have nothing tomorrow. I have jobs Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah, me too.
Tim, you're full time, right? So you're working every day. And today, actually, it's already tomorrow for you. I forgot. And it's not your Labor Day, so you didn't even have off on Monday, did you?
No.
Ah, man. Long weekend. Do you guys have do you have any like long weekend type holidays out
yeah, we've got Labor Day, Queen's birthday, Easter. There's a couple others in amongst that. So
nice. When is your Labor Day?
May, I think.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. Easter. Wait, Easter? Huh? Isn't that typically a Sunday? You get the day after.
We get Good Friday off, and some states get Easter Monday.
Wow. Pretty cool. Okay. Interesting. It's so interesting how it works in different places, what holidays we get. The job I was talking about earlier that I have coming up is going to be, because Columbus Day here in the States, Columbus Day is a Monday, it's a holiday, they're going to open. They're really running every other week. It's just Wednesday to Sunday, but that week is an extra day. So that week I'll be working a 6-day week plus have a day off and then go into an 5-day week. And it's interesting because, you know, is Columbus Day a holiday in our industry? Does it count as a day that you might get OT or anything like that?
In our industry, there's no holidays.
It never was any for me ever.
Right. Yeah. So all of us are kind of in agreement that that's not a thing. We don't get those sorts of holidays.
And Ed, I got to say goodnight.
Okay.
I have to get to the store before 9 o'clock.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Mac. We'll see you
I'm
next week,
glad.
maybe.
I'm glad I did. We'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks,
All
Mac.
right.
Yeah. So people don't who don't work in AV don't always realize like that we don't always get these holidays off, or we
Well-
don't get any benefit, extra money for those days or anything.
Oh, well, that's true. I was going to say, I mean, naturally, usually for me, like Thanksgiving week, Christmas week, it's just kind of normally, well, on corporate side, dead anyway. So I kind of end up with those weeks off, but not
You don't get
always.
holiday pay for them.
No.
We don't get paid, no. So, but you know,
Right.
usually I expect it. So
Now,
But,
Justin, have you had to work on a New Year's Eve? Have you ever done a New Year's Eve event?
I have.
I don't know since I've been freelancing. Back when I was with PSAV for a while in a hotel, I think we did. But I don't think I've done anything in recent years.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's one of the only holiday days where I charge a higher premium rate for the New Year's Eve. I know a lot of guys who do, a lot of people who charge a little extra for all those New Year's Eve because you're working very late and you're working with people who've been partying and partying.
And if you have to go
leads
into New York City, you charge 5 times as much because it's going to take you 5 times as long to get anywhere.
Right. That also, yeah, that's a great point, is that in the New York City area, it's definitely a big deal if you have to get into Manhattan at all. Yeah, but yeah, typically that's one of the only ones I have a totally separate New Year's rate, and depending on, I always ask what the gig is before I give the rate, because it can be a sliding scale if the job really doesn't sound like it's something I want to do. So. But that
makes sense.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever had to work on, I don't think I've had to work on Christmas. Yeah, and typically, the Thanksgiving is in corporate, at least, is usually not busy. That weekend isn't usually busy. And then in New York, at least, from about December 15th on, gets like super slow until those New Year's Eve parties and stuff. But yeah, usually corporate in New York pretty much dies off that second week of after that second week in December.
Actually, here too. In Florida, there's not a lot because people want to be with their families. They don't want to be elsewhere at a conference.
Right. And then we don't come back until doesn't really get busy until about February, till the beginning of February. January is usually pretty slow in New York for events. I mean, the weather is pretty bad. Yeah, it's usually fairly slow in corporate, at least that whole month of January.
That's us in August.
Okay.
Yeah, no. January here, like the week after the 1st, it's like boom. We usually have some week-long thing at the convention center, previously up through last year, yeah, right before March. So yeah, as soon as New Year's is over, it's go through June, July, and then July, August, you kind of coast. And then September, take off until November, until Thanksgiving. It's the usual pattern. I don't know how soon we'll see that usual pattern.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Typically, so my wife loves Disney, so she worked for a Disney store for a number of years, and we often would go. Her birthday happens to fall in January. We'd often go to Disney in January around her birthday because it would be so much cheaper, because tourist-wise, it's like dead down there, after the holidays. We actually did our honeymoon over Christmas time for 13 days on Disney property, which was quite a long time. But it was interesting to see how busy it was, and then like as soon as New Year's was over, how dead it got down there. But yeah, we've done the cheap trip to Disney during that time because the tourists all leave. But I guess it would make sense by that logic that corporate conferences would also be cheaper once everybody's kind of out of town during that month. So that, I guess that makes sense regionally for you guys. But yeah, in New York, January is like very, very slow typically.
We have the better weather in January, and in August.
Yeah.
Coming to Florida for a conference in August is like,
brutal.
hi.
Don't do it.
Yep.
I mean,
You're
do
gonna
it because I want to
die.
work, but don't do
Yeah.
it if you
That's-
value your life, because you'll melt. That's
you will sweat to
usually
death and
what we have in January is like these people, and they're just like, "Is it like this all the time down here?" I'm like, "No, this is mild. This is cold season," and for them, they're like thawing out from like where Ed's from. So,
Right.
But Ed, I got to say, since you talked about your thing you got coming up, I'm really kind of jealous because I looked up some of the pictures of this.
Yeah.
It's like real. It's the real deal. Like, and that's just like one of like 20 pictures I was looking at, but that looks intense.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. It's really cool. I've been going to it for years, and it used to just be in one location. I'm not sure which location that one is, if that's Cortland or in Long Island, but yeah, it's pretty great. I know a bunch of people who do the installation at Cortland, and they've been doing it since it opened. Mostly a bunch of lighting people, and every year I'm like super impressed with how the sculptures come out. They typically don't have to put the pumpkins together like other people handle that, but they have to light everything and make it look amazing. And no, it's really, really cool how it comes together, and it's just grown every year. It sells out like 100%. It's just people flock to it. And from what I understand, last year they operated at like 50% capacity, and we're sold out to that capacity every night. So again, that's kind of why I took it. I figured it's the one job I'm pretty sure isn't going to disappear this season. So plus it's just cool to check out all those hand carved pumpkins and stuff, and I'll be able to get my steps in, so because I'll be walking around there. It's a very big exhibit, so really
I've missed
cool.
that, getting the steps in. I used to be able to do that at the convention center here, just getting in from the parking lot every day, like
10,000 steps was a slow day back then.
I know, right? Now my watch is like, what are you doing? Get up. Like it
Now I no longer have a pedometer at all because I'm not moving.
Puts a pop-up. It's like, you need to get up. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
Clients used to say, you guys must have no trouble getting your steps. It's like, nope, not at all.
Yeah. Well, it's about 8:48. It looks like by my clock here on the East Coast, U.S. Unless anybody has anything else they want to talk about, I think maybe we'll actually wrap tonight a little early. We don't have any questions right now coming in on social, so if you're out in social and you want to throw anything in last minute, let us know. If there's a question or comment, or you want to tell us about what you've done, or if you have a cool gig coming up. I do want to add, we would love for anybody who's watching to join our Discord. That way you can continue these conversations. Earlier, we kind of talked a little bit about networking and all the people who we've connected with this past year. And, our community on Discord is a great place to meet people from other locations and people with all sorts of skills. And as John Idelson earlier mentioned, he's connecting with people who he can talk to, from South Africa and, from Germany, and get answers to these questions that he has, and people who can help get things. And it's just, these online communities that we've built over this past year have been, so great. It keeps you in contact with people. There's a social aspect to it. You know, you can come on the show, and you know we all get to have some FaceTime, even though it's over Zoom. We get to, you know, see each other and converse and have a good time. But between each episode, we've got the Discord where we can all start a chat or you know, just get an answer to a question or research, and you can search, and it's all, you know, it's a great record and resource. So I'm going to put the link to the AV Tech Talks Discord out on social, and please join us over there and say hello and post your questions, comments, any of that stuff. Sorry.
I'll put it on YouTube.
Thank you very much, because typing and talking at the same time for me is a challenge. It's like walking and chewing gum. So cool. So yeah, definitely join, hang out with us. I think everybody who's on here in Zoom is there already, but I'll just put it there to be safe. And then great. So I think with that we could probably call it a day. Fast Eddie, you're welcome. Thank you for the questions today. And we'll be back next week, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Hopefully Omar and Chris will be joining us next week. And then I know we've got some we rescheduled Coyote for later this month. I think that's the 20th. So we'll have some other cool stuff coming up. And then we'd you know, if anybody out there has ideas or has something they want to present, we would love to hear about it. We'd love to welcome you to present. Like I said, we're here every Monday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. And, you know, I want to also thank the DVE store because, you know, wherever you're watching us, if it's on YouTube or Facebook, it's in 1080p. If you're here in Zoom, we're pushing it out in 1080p. And the reason we're able to do that is the support of the DVE store. So check them out at dvestore.com. They can take care of all your video equipment needs. They've got audio that, you know, you need a mix pre. You can reach out to DV Store Guy or his team. Will help get you set up. If you need a vMix license, that's where I got my vMix license. They're a reseller, so please, you know, message them for anything you need, and let them know that you heard about it from AV Tech Talks. They love to hear that, and they love to know where people are finding out about DVE Store. So check them out at dvestore.com. So with that, I think we're in a good spot for tonight. I don't know what Omar has this week on the podcast, but AV Educate, the podcast edition is on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can tune in. You can check out for more info, aveducate.com. That's actually a great resource to find anything out about. Man, I am really bad at this typing and talking today. For anything about AV Tech Talks or AV Educate, we have a YouTube channel if you're on Facebook and aren't on the YouTube that has a great archive. But you can also find the same videos for the most part in our Facebook. So go check all that out, and you can get those links if you go to aveducate.com. You'll be able to find links to all our social, find a link to get information about the podcast and about AV Tech Talk. So check us out, subscribe, like, all that stuff. It helps us, and it also helps you not miss anything that we're doing. So cool. I want to take this moment to thank our panelists that we had tonight. I know some of them have left already, but I want to thank Justin, Tim, Iris, who are still here, John Needleson. We had Matt Carr earlier, and Brent Chadler. I think that was everybody who was here. Yeah, thank you guys, and we'll see you next week. So come on back. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a good one.